All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Linus Cackley, and I am the program coordinator for FutureTech Careers. FutureTech is a program on campus dedicated to serving students in computer science fields and advanced manufacturing fields. Think of us like your own personal career services department, specialized to help you succeed in your career path. What you're sitting at right now is a career conversation, whether you're in person or watching on Zoom. We host these once a week, sometimes twice a week, where we bring in speakers from the tech or advanced manufacturing industry to talk about their career pathways and answer questions you have about what it's like to actually spend a day or spend your career working in the industry. So today, we're lucky to be joined by Peter Hungerford, who is Vice President of Manufacturing at The Right Place. Peter's going to walk through his role at The Right Place and how he got to where he is now, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. A quick housekeeping thing before Peter starts. If you have a question in the room, just raise your hand. I'll bring the microphone to you. And then if you have a question on Zoom, drop your question in the chat and I'll read it aloud so Peter can hear it. With that being said, Peter, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for taking your time out of your evening to be here and talk through this. Those online, appreciate the same. As Linus mentioned, my name is Peter Hungerford. I currently serve as the Vice President of Manufacturing Services with The Right Place, MMTC. Let me start with the current role, and then what I'll do is I'll talk about how I got here, and then we'll talk a little bit about how manufacturing has evolved. And then, if this is something that interests you, just some tips on if you want to get engaged and learn more and kind of explore a career in manufacturing, just some ideas on how to get going in that. Going to spend a half hour or less talking about that stuff, and really interested in the questions that any one of you may have, so that we can really have some good dialogue. That's the important thing. You may have walked in here with some questions and some things you want to know. We certainly want to address those. So first, like I said, I'm a vice president of manufacturing services with The Right Place, MMTC, and our job is to help the economic development of the community. The Right Place is an economic development organization, so when businesses are looking to expand their business, or there's a business from out of state that wants to come into Michigan, we help those businesses set up or expand their business here. And there's a variety of services. If someone has a land that they want to build a factory on, sometimes that land isn't zoned appropriately. But it could be farmland, it could be land that could easily be converted, but there's a lot of municipal things that have to happen. So we help them do all those things and get their business set up to do business in Michigan or expand in Michigan. I also mentioned MMTC, that's the Michigan Manufacturing Technology Center. That's a statewide organization, and we represent the interest of that organization here in the 13 county region around Kent County. So Kent County, Muskegon, Ottawa, Newaygo, Montcalm, Ionia, Barry, Allegan, Oceana Lake, and I think I'm missing one or two, but you get. I mean, this broad West Michigan area, and our charge is to help small scale and medium scale manufacturers grow. We offer a variety of training, we offer a variety of consulting, and we also partner with local businesses, local consultants, or subject matter experts, so that if a small or medium sized company is looking for strategic planning or they need some quality support, um, we have local experts who can help them do that, kind of pairing up and matchmaking for the businesses that are here with the services that they provide. So we believe in establishing a healthy manufacturing ecosystem all the way from the big OEMs. In this area, we have large companies like Perrigo is a big pharmaceutical company. We're also heavy in automotive, while the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, a Ford, a General Motors, a Stellantis, their headquarters are in the east side of the state. We have a huge supply base here, a lot of suppliers that provide product into the automotive industry. We also have a pretty strong aerospace and defense corridor. We have a strong food processing corridor. We have a strong medical device corridor. So if we think about some of the products there, I mean, there's a variety of industries represented in West Michigan, and we're all making stuff. I mean, in the end, manufacturers, we make stuff, but that breadth of services can get pretty broad. We'll talk a little bit more about those kind of things when we get into advanced manufacturing and the things that. The other aspect, how did I get here? How did I get into this role? I'm relatively new in this role, frankly. I started October 6th of 2025. Prior to that, I was in industry for 25 years. I served tier one automotive supplier here in town, ADAC Automotive, wonderful company. And I had the great privilege of having a variety of roles, all the way from being in IT at the start of my career to then being in administration, getting my master's and my CMA, which is a certified management accountant for the financial side. It's like a CPA without the testing of all the public accounting kind of qualifications, but some of the knowledge and the learning overlaps. So did that, and then I got into materials management, managing the inflow and outflow of products. I did some things in the HR world, sales and engineering, a variety. And one of the things I'll say about manufacturing, it's one of the few industries and sectors I see where almost every aspect of business is covered. In some cases, you may not have the promotion like we're not marketing Fruit Loops, or like cereal like that, but we still do our own version of marketing where we're trying to demonstrate the value we can bring to another business with the products and services that we have. So the cool thing about manufacturing is there's always something new to explore and there's always something new to learn. I spent, like I said, 25 years, and it probably took me close to 15 years to learn the business, just because it's pretty complicated as a tier one. So again, during that time, a variety of roles, saw almost every aspect of the business, and then I had the great privilege of serving as our chief operating officer, as our chief strategy officer, and then helped the company in our diversification efforts as we were primarily automotive. We wanted to explore, what does it mean to be a defense contractor? What does it mean to medical devices or orthopedics? We wanted to break out into other industries using the core competencies of plastic injection molding, painting, final assembly, and electronics integration that we had developed over the many, many years. So did that. I also had a great fortune of seeing the world. Did a lot of international business with the company. We expanded globally through a series of partnerships. We were where to set up a new plant takes a lot of money and it's a lot of risk. Not only do you have to build it, you have to install all the equipment, and you have to hire all the people, train all the team members, and that can be a lot for one company. So by joining forces with a couple other companies, we were able to mitigate the risk of how we did that. And so I got to see the world, which is the world is a marvelous place. So I got to spend time in China, Japan, Korea, Germany, did a lot in India, did a lot of our mergers and acquisitions in India with joint ventures there, Mexico, and then certainly the US. We had operations in South America. That's just one place I did never have a chance to go. The world is a big place too, so seeing everything is hard. But as we think about careers and whatever business you get into, one of the great ways to see the world is to do it through your work, and the reason for that is oftentimes you have partners or business partners that you're working with and as you travel. They kind of set up the itinerary. When you land, you have someone who is, there to greet you and get you to where you need to go. And during the time you're there, they'll, help you see the sights and see even the history of the countries, which is pretty marvelous. So it's a great way to see the world through business. Certainly you can do it personally too, but then you're kind of in charge of your own itinerary to do that, which can be fun as well. Some people love the adventure. I really enjoyed my time with the business partners and really learned a lot just about humanity. A quick story, and then I'll come back to that. I was in southern China, and it was Chinese New Year, and I visited a supplier down there, and they kind of took me out on the weekend. We were walking through a park, and there just happened to be this pier that we were walking up and down. And I quickly what I saw was, families holding hands with their kids, families just kind of just enjoying what was a beautiful day in February in southern China. And I had the quick realization that no matter where we are in the world, everybody kind of has the same ambitions, provide for themselves, provide for their families. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Most of people like you and I are just trying to live and just trying to enjoy life. So it's that perspective that I think you gain when you travel the world and see those kind of things caught up in the caught up in. But it's just one of those things that gave me faith in humanity that, we all do have the same ambitions and in the end we're all trying to accomplish the same kind of thing for ourselves and for our families. All right, so that's kind of about me in the Q&A. If you have other questions about specific roles that I had the great privilege of being a part of, we can talk through some of the details of those. But really saw every aspect of a manufacturing company during. So let's talk about how about we do this? Let's start with how is manufacturing evolving today, and then let's talk about what careers look like in advanced manufacturing today. So a lot of the buzzwords that you may hear: automation, how AI is being embedded in the manufacturing floor, robotics, both stationary and moving robots. Some of this stuff has been in place for a long, long time, frankly. And to be honest, it's not all about reducing cost and removing labor. Sometimes it's about ergonomics. Like early in my career, what team members were doing putting parts together, they develop things in their hands, right? Carpal tunnel, that kind of stuff. I don't remember a specific example, but that's what I mean by ergonomics. They stand too long and their knees get sore. I worked the line. After 8+ hours of working the line, the back of your knees get kind of tired. Your back gets a little bit tired if you're standing and doing those things. They're not easy jobs. And so a lot of times we bring in automation and electronics and those kind of and robotics to help alleviate that stress on a human being and to make sure that the part quality can be the same. Because some of these parts are very, very safety oriented. At ADAC, we made door handles, and you think about this. Every time you go to open your door, you grab this what you think is a piece of plastic, and in the days gone by, it could have been metal. And now they have embedded electronics in them. So the little key fobs you have, there's an electronic sensor inside. When you go through a car wash, water can't get in there. You can't be always active, or it's going to drain your battery. So the amount of engineering that goes into some of these products that you wouldn't think about, it's quite remarkable. So in order to do that, we've had to apply automation and advanced manufacturing techniques in order to make sure that part quality stays. So again, I want to give you that perspective that sometimes when we talk about the advancements in manufacturing, some of it is cost improvements, right? Sometimes you just can't get enough parts through the line to offset the cost that you put in the line. So maybe you can add some automation to speed it up, get more parts through it, distribute that cost over a wider variety of product. Sometimes you install a big line and you want to do many, many different products, right, with that fixed investment. So how can you make that line flexible, right? I want to do product A on day one. I want to do product B on day two, or even more ambitious is I want to do product A in hour one and product B in hour two, and have those quick changeovers. You may hear technologies on quick changeovers. Some of you may experience. And so all these things are advancing pretty quickly, and it's not just one dimension that's being addressed. So, some of the technologies that are being deployed and have been deployed are many times when you're putting parts together, there's things you're looking to make sure that a screw or something is in place, right? There's a visual inspection, they call it. Well, at hour 7, after standing there, that's why I brought that up, your mind begins to get, hey, I'm just trying to get home. In an hour I got to pick up my kid from school, and that's just being human, right? That's the human experience with this kind of stuff, and that's real. So some of these systems get put in place to, like I said, to guarantee quality and to help supplement what the human. And there are some things that, frankly, machines do better than humans. More often, there are some people who are very, 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 very good and quick at math. Most of the time, a computer's faster. It just is, right? So that's just a small example of some of these things. So a lot of time in manufacturing, we spend a lot of time saying, how can we deploy humans and use humans what they're best at? Some problem solving, communication, training new team members, being part of a team and team problem solving of those things. That's what humans do very, very well. But these repetitive things over and over and over, you can get robotics and automation in place that can do that very, very well. So finding the right place for these things is incredibly important. That's where some of the engineering comes in. So kind of career one is certainly there's tons of opportunity in manufacturing for most engineering careers. And in college and university, a lot of engineering is about problem solving. So it's not just your discipline of engineering, it's your mindset of engineering. It's your mindset of how do you find solutions using data and science to come up with something that is likely going to work. And the beautiful thing about then when you get in practical application of these things, all these things that the textbook said should work don't. So then you got to figure out why, right? And that's where experiencing these things come in. And we'll talk about some tips and stuff later related to that. So engineering is certainly core. Another one, and an offshoot, I'll say, of engineering, that can be anything from product engineering to quality engineering. You know, how do you develop a product that has built-in quality? How do you develop processes that have quality built into those processes? And/or, like I was talking about, inspection. How do you have systems in place, vision systems that can supplement the human being and do inspection more efficiently, as an example. But bringing these technologies together I'll say that's the frontier of engineering, where the traditional manufacturing engineer or product engineer or industrial engineer was doing things around the human. Now it's that interrelation between machines and automated equipment. Very exciting and super fun. Some of the other advanced technologies that are coming into play and careers. Let's talk additive for a moment, or 3D printing. Today, 3D printing and additive is capable of making almost anything. And the trick today isn't, can I make it? And can it meet the quality requirements? More so, it's throughput. Throughput means in a set period of time, how many parts can I get out? Because that's part of manufacturing. Linus and I were talking earlier that if you walk into a plant and nothing's running, there's a problem. No money's being made at that point, right? No, paychecks are hard to come by when nothing's running. Manufacturing, machines are running and making stuff, right? So the more it's running, you got to be at 75, 80% making stuff. Right? So what's involved in that, and I'll come back to the additive thing in a second. What's involved in some of that is the cost accounting. So accounting and finance, there's careers there as you're trying to understand what your cost structures should be. There is sales and costing when you're making a proposal to a new customer, what your pricing should be. There's a lot of math and financial aspects that go into that. If you're buying a big piece of equipment, guessing as best as you can and having a plan for how am I going to make a return on that. If I'm going to invest, $1 million over 2 or 3 years, I'm going to want to make $2 million back, right? And is that possible, right? And doing the math that supports those things. So, we talk finance, we talk costing, certainly just the sales and go-to-market aspects. That is an art as much as it is a science, but it's really fun. A lot of people start in either a technical career, a technical position like a engineer or someone on the manufacturing floor, and eventually can get into sales because you have to know your product. And it's not just about here's the features of my product, is why do you, customer, benefit from my product greater than trying to do it yourself? That's a different proposition than says here's all the features I have. What we want to sell is the value I bring you. And so that becomes the art side of it. Speaking of art, and I'm going to bring it back to additive here in a second, we have a lot of designers. CAD design, product design, shop floor layout, all the CAD. It gets involved in a lot of aspects of manufacturing as we're trying to develop our products, as we're trying to develop our processes, how we have efficient flow of material coming in and out, efficient flow and deployment of people. So the design aspect of it comes into play. And now I do want to tie in additive. So like I said, additive, you can make a lot of different things. The issue might be throughput, but the cutting edge is how do you design products now leveraging the capabilities of additive or 3D printing? And let me explain. How many of you, when you were younger, or if you have kids, play with Play-Doh? Yep, and you remember the little plastic things that you put the stuff in and close it and it makes something, right? That's kind of injection molding or stamping, right? You're putting material in between two tools, and the tool is opening and closing, and it's forming a part, either with some kind of liquid that solidifies or something that's already solid, and you're bending it around a certain mold. But you can't make a hollow center out of a solid thing in that type of process, right? Because what are you stamping, right? You have to. There has to be something. The tool has to be able to produce the part. So when we talk about unique things, we talk about the product design being tool constrained. So I couldn't make a solid ball necessarily just with that motion and have a floating ball inside it, shake it and hear it. With additive, you can. It's hard in some processes to use more than one material. It's not impossible. You have companies doing stamping and injection molding and things like that with multiple materials. But with additive, you can design a part that has, a solid core and maybe a soft outside, right? Depending on the application. With additive, you have a lot of these nanomaterials that are incredibly strong on the inside. Can you have a nanomaterial endoskeleton with a decorative cover on it? Right? To do that in injection molding is probably cost prohibitive. The material is pretty expensive, but you're building it up from nothing, right? In additive. In traditional processes, you have to have something opening and closing or a different kind of process to make that. So when I said the cutting edge with additive, it's not just the process. There's a lot of people and companies that are very good at making products using 3D printing and additive in plastics and woods and metals. But it's the design. How do I approach this different? We have a lot of people in industry who have been doing this for years, designing products with I'll call it the intuition that I got to design it a certain way so that it is capable of being tooled. Back to that. Well, that goes out the window. Right? You can really do a lot of different things. You can make one solid part with an S-shaped fluid channel and do it all in one build. Right? You can't do that in tool constraints. You can't build a channel in the middle of something. So the design side, what I'm trying to say is in the design side, there's a lot of advances in these new production technologies that are changing the way people are designing products because you no longer have those kind of constraints that you did, with traditional tooling. Now, the benefit of traditional tooling is you can make a lot of parts in a pretty short period of time. You can make hundreds of thousands of parts in a day, really, with some of these things. So, I mean, that's what when I said earlier that additive has part quality capability, no question about it. What it hasn't quite gotten is that throughput level. You can't. It's hard to do 100,000 unless they're really tiny parts. You do 100,000 parts today, and one or two, even production grade, industrial grade additive is a tall task. Right? So, but it's evolving. 10 years from now, I can see additive. The throughput's only going to get greater. The quality level and the resolution is only going to get greater, and I think it's really going to unlock some products we can't even think about today. And we're going to need those as we explore the next industries of fusion energy, space exploration, and colonization. I mean, those things we'll probably see in our lifetime, at some point. Space mining, not out of the question at all as we try to find resources off our planet. But when you have to design products that can be in a less than 0 degree temperature, but have incredible radiation that comes on them because we're protected by our atmosphere. Out in space, you're not. It's a whole new way of designing products. So I think as the need comes about, we're going to use these manufacturing technologies, and those who are getting into it now are going to have that advantage because they're going to be used to designing products with these new types of processes. So let's see, what have we touched on? We've touched on engineering, we've touched on quality, we've touched on finance as careers into manufacturing, we've touched on design, product design, and the changes there, and the exciting changes that are there. And then there's what I'll say. There's a lot of. Let me touch on this one. I forgot this one. Supply chain management. Supply chain management. I got my degree at Michigan State back in the mid '90s in supply chain management. And it's a good cross between kind of the math and the technical side and the business side because there's a lot of math and how many parts should I deliver when in the right time. That's essentially what supply chain is. How do I get the right amount of parts to this location when they need it, right? So you're not holding a bunch of inventory. And supply chain is going to is still what I'll say a very, very important career within manufacturing as we're changing a little bit with all these overseas buys and rightfully so. Sometimes countries do have a comparative advantage, and it's okay to buy from them. But when we're trying to develop our own industry, we still need to have a variety of parts available to us, even on this continent, right? So between us and Mexico and Canada, we'd really like to have most of the products that we need available within these three trading partners. That's not going to be 100%, but I think that that's part of where we're going is how do we make sure that we're not so relying on one country or one or two countries for selected parts. So supply chain management and IT. I did forget IT. Especially in defense right now, if you're a defense manufacturer, the cybersecurity is immense. There's certain requirements before you can do business with the government, the Department of Defense. You have to meet their certain standards for cybersecurity. And that's not just the system itself, but the process in managing it. I'm sure all of us now get those every once in a while, this weird email, and it's our IT department testing us to see if we know, is it a phishing attack or is it not? But this stuff is real. I mean, the minute you open it up, it can really cause problems. And even a non-defense company, it can cause problems. And let alone the systems. Let's touch on AI, and this is where kind of some of these things converge. So, in order for AI to be really effective in manufacturing, your data has to be in pretty good order. And so earlier I was mentioning those machines where they open and close, and there are certain materials that react differently with things. And a lot of times we might schedule production for 5 days a week, and the second half of Friday or the beginning of Saturday is all preventative maintenance. They're going through, and things just we know robots and machines break too. They're not the end all, right? They break too, and we need people to help maintain them. And so there's usually preventative maintenance regiments where those things that happen often, like if you have a big press and this thing's stamping and the floor is shaking, you got to go and check the bolts that are holding stuff together, right? And that force that's coming down, you even have to do tool maintenance on that because metal is malleable, right? After so many shots, the current dimensions you had in those cavities are going to change because you had immense pressure pushing in the metal, as an example. So the preventative maintenance, the panacea for AI is to have it kind of monitor the environment and give us notice that, hey, you know what, this kind of stuff has happened. You might want to go check it out before the detrimental impact. Because sometimes these things are just cranking out, and the next thing you know, you have a problem with the production and you're making scrap. That's just money out the window, right? So if we can somehow have advanced intelligence tell us, when these conditions are starting to happen, and we can, cut it off after 10% of the original scrap amount was being produced. Now there's a humongous cost savings, and it's not just cost for the company. When you have good profitability in the company, many employees get rewarded, right? So this is about the personal side of it too. Again, we went back to that story of everyone's trying to just kind of provide for themselves and their families. Well, there's nothing like being a team member, no matter what role it is, having great success, and either quarterly at the end of the year saying, hey, we did so good, here's some extra for you. That is not uncommon in the industry at all, but it takes that collection of people coming together. So AI and that predictive maintenance is important, but all the data to support that has to be in place. You have to know kind of the decision rules, right? What typically happens when these conditions start to happen. So the AI learning model can also predict those kind of things. And certainly, let me address this thing with AI. You hear stories that AI is going to eliminate jobs. And I just don't think so. I think what it's going to enable is companies to expand their business without necessarily having to add the amount of jobs they had to in the past. Or as the workforce is declining, you read about this and the data supports it, over the next 10 years, our talent force is going to decline. The number of people in the workforce is declining. So if AI and things like that can fill in that gap, the people who are working today can still have very fruitful careers, right? But the business can keep going. If you have a manufacturing line that requires 6 people to run and 4 don't show up, guess what? Line doesn't run. So if you have then where you're able to deploy robots and you have some intelligence there, and it's three people, you just hedged your risk, right? Now, those other three people are going to be doing other things, or they're going to level up their own skills and be able to do those next level jobs, right? So overall, I'm not as afraid, and I'm very much a personnel person, right? I think there has to be across in any business, you have to provide fruitful careers to your team members. They have to be able to come in, know what's expected of them, know that their role is important, and know what winning means. Right? When I come in, all of us want to win, right? And if every day I come in and the goalpost changes, the goal line changes, that can get really frustrating. And that leads me, I think, to the final comment. Then we'll get into some tips and some Q&A. Leadership and management. There's a big difference. When I think of management, I think of you're kind of doing task-oriented stuff. Someone needs your knowledge to guide the team and help them through situations. Leadership is looking out and saying, okay, we have a very capable team managing the day-to-day. But what about 3 years from now? Where are we going to be? Do we need to diversify? Do we need to change our product category? Are our products antiquated? Are they 10 years old? Some of these things aren't like you don't change these things in a month. These things take years to evolve, capabilities and processes and new products. And so leadership's responsibility is to guide the organization into the future. That is their responsibility. And certainly, there's always crisis that can happen. And with having solid leaders who have experienced these things, certainly they can deal in the tactical world. But more so, our management team deals with the day-to-day, while our leadership team thinks about the future, thinks about strategic partnerships, thinks about how do we expand our business or improve our quality? How do we serve our customers better? That's the difference between leadership. And that is also a cross between, I'll say, science and art. If you're in a business program, you're going to probably have a management and a leadership class. And there is some science behind leadership, behind how human behavior happens, how to help motivate your team and help them be positive, not in a facetious way, a real way. Well, how do you set up your business structure so that, like I said, people can come in every day, know that they're important, their role is important, and they know what winning is. Set those structures up, that leads to culture. Management and leaders have a big part of creating and maintaining the culture of an organization. All employees do to some degree, frankly, right? It's not just one group or the other group. Everyone has to contribute and participate in enhancing the culture. But there's also that responsibility, like I said, from leadership to set the tone for the type of company and the type of behaviors that you expect from. And that takes time, that takes experience. And that kind of leads me into some tips, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. I think the first one I would say is do the hard jobs. No matter what career you get into, do the hard jobs. Because you're not going to succeed all the time. But that resilience you learn from failure and the things that you learn from failure really, really stick with you. Right? And that's sometimes we call them the battle scars or whatever kind of fun term you want to give to it. But that stuff is real. And when you really try and you push yourself to do something you don't think you're capable of, not only does it give you that experience that the next time it happens, you're going to be the one people look to, right? Your value goes up. But you're also going to gain confidence, because I think when we go into a new situation and we don't know if we're going to succeed or fail, there's a level of fear that we have. And sometimes our fear puts self-imposed limitations on ourselves. I don't know if I want to try that. It's going to, maybe I have to work the weekend if I try it. But if I succeed, we may have a new product. If I succeed, we may have a new customer, right? And sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. But the hard jobs, the ones that kind of make you uneasy, those are the ones I would say go after, right? And maybe not right away, right? You'll have to decide for yourself when the right time is. But those hard jobs is where you have the greatest opportunity. And the second tip I'll say is be willing to clean up the mess. If you're going to spill the milk, clean up the mess, right? So it's not just about, let me go in and try these hard jobs, and if I fail, I step back and someone else cleans up. No, be ready to roll up your sleeves and help clean it up, because again, that's where a lot of the learning is in. And then the final one I'll say is, if you get in an organization you really like and they are willing to invest in you, always say yes. That's one of the things that I didn't realize I was doing this as I was going through my career. But like I said, when I started in IT, I started with that. And then they said, hey, you got your MBA. We have this opening in finance. Is this something you want to try? Yes. Yes, I do. Because I want to learn this element of the business. Oh, we just had an opening in materials management. Is this something you want to try? Yes, I do. Right. I haven't done it before, but yeah, I'll give it a try. We just have this opening in manufacturing management. You want to give it a try? Yes, I do. Because not only do you get that breadth of experience, but as you develop your leadership capability and your confidence, you're going to be able to reflect on your time in that position. And it's amazing the number of people that say, well, everything would be great if that department over there was doing a better job. Well, if you were in that role, you can kind of call foul because you did the job, right? You did the job and you know what it is. So you're just a better manager. You're a better leader. You have more confidence. And these businesses, a lot of businesses, especially in manufacturing, are quite complicated. Like I said before, in auto, it probably took me 15 years to learn all this. Now, there's a lot of elements, and I was interested in learning them all. But that's my final tip. And this is manufacturing and non-manufacturing alike. Give yourself the grace of being patient. Allow yourself the time to really learn a certain role. And, to me, that's at minimum, whatever role you're in, is a couple of years. Because year one, you're just kind of getting the hang of it, you know, and it just takes some, you're going to make some mistakes, but then it's going to, after about 90 days, you're going to start to feel comfortable. You're going to get the hang of it. And then you're going to just kind of be working in it and taking other people's lead on what are the things you want to do to enhance that part of the organization. Year two, you're going to have enough knowledge and experience to contribute to the evolution of that department. And now, like I said, the confidence and the leadership, you take that mindset to another department and another department and another department. After 10 years, you've had, 5 rotations. You've been a part of not only learning the role, but evolving those departments. Not only are you going to have your own self-confidence, you're going to demonstrate to the organization the value bring, and it is going to be real. You're going to be able to solve problems. You're going to be able to be creative thinking. When new technologies come about, you're going to be adaptive to the changes. And adapting to change is something that humans typically aren't very good at, right? Because we like to get comfortable, typically. But if you can try to force yourself to embrace change, always say yes, you're going to be in a position to grow. So I've done a lot of talking. I mean, I could talk forever on manufacturing. You can tell I really, really enjoy it. I've seen a lot, and I've had great opportunity to serve in a variety of roles. Very grateful for the things I've done. But what's most important to me here is to also learn what are the things that are on your mind, and let's have a conversation on the things that interest you. Open it up to Q&A.
So I had it in my mind and now it's just gone. But um as someone that's worked in manufacturing for a long time, well you have, I haven't. But
I know what you mean.
um I've heard from a lot of people that kind of it seems more now than ever you need an in to get in. Like at most businesses you need you need to know someone there, you need a friend of a friend kind of thing, maybe a parent or something. What's a way to stand out to manufacturing companies in order for a better chance at a career or to get hired?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Part of my answer you're not going to like, and part of my answer is even when I was at your point in life, part of it is who you know. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd be lying if I said it was any different. But it's not all of it, right? And the mindset I have is your resume and your credentials might get you in the door, but then you got to sell yourself the minute you're in there. Relationships don't matter the minute you're across the table from the hiring person. Now it's up to you, right? So to get in the door and at least have the opportunity for the role, certainly it can help who you know. But I don't think that's all of it. And for me, when I would do hiring, certainly, there might be, you see on some of the job postings, your minimum education requirement is this or that. You have these foundational credentials. But I see now more than ever, companies are willing to overlook that if you don't quite meet that standard. If you can demonstrate what you can do versus what you know. I mean, knowledge is power. What you know, it does matter. But what you do with it really matters more. Because like I said, all the problem solving, what can, if you might know how to do 3D printing. Well, can I help solve this problem over here where, if we get 2 or 3 more parts out of this build, now the economics make sense. Can you help us get 2 or 3 more parts out of this? Or we're having a quality problem with this kind of product. And if you've done some of that stuff before, communicating what you can do gives the hiring person a lot of confidence that when you get in the role, you're not just going to sit behind your desk. You're going to get out. You're not afraid to get dirty, right? And make these things happen. Now, I said the word dirty. Manufacturing plants aren't nearly as dirty as they used to be. They're actually quite clean. And they have to be because dirt getting in products can matter. Electronics, for example. Electronics factories are very, very clean because any little bit of dirt can cause kind of a big problem. So I don't want to give that impression. So I would most focus on what you can do in conjunction with what you know so that they know they have some confidence that the problem solving, the contribution you can make when you're in is something more than just them having to train you up and help you think, right? The other thing I'd say more than ever, because we're in this weird point where talent there's still a talent shortage. And more than ever, companies are taking interns. So, when you think about the type of company, for me, I would research the kind of companies and the type of things that I want to do and look for internship opportunities and just apply them all. And if you start early, like even your second year or third year, and try to have 2 or 3, not because it's kind of the thing to do today, but like I said before, the more experiences you have, the more confidence you're going to have, and the more your credentials are going to say, "Hey, I've done these things. I'm not new to quality management. I'm not new to product design using CAD. I'm not new to setting up new cost standards." And if it's a company you like, and this seems kind of trite, but it's not. I mean, week 1, 2, frankly, even month 1, especially if you have a company that has multiple plants, if you know your right way around the business and you know the people, when it comes time when you're done with your schooling and you want to get a permanent job, 1, you know the people, right, which is important. 2, you know your way around. You probably have had a badge. You know where to go in the entrance in the plants in Muskegon or Holland or Newaygo or wherever it might be. You've been there. You've done that. And there's just a level of confidence that gets built not only in yourself, but the companies you worked with. If they're not bringing in someone with 0 experience, they're bringing someone in with greater than 0 experience. Does that answer your question?
For the non-traditional learner, right? So 25 and up, that has been in the work industry, right? Not necessarily in manufacturing directly, but in the industry in some way. Um, do you see these non-traditional learners getting certificates and or associate degree level of education and breaking into the field, and does that previous experience provide employability, or do you really need to be a master in the thing that you're manufacturing, the technology or whatever it is that you're...
Well, one, non-traditional learning, I think, has a ton of benefits to it. Simply because life is a good teacher. Even if you never, had a role in a manufacturing industry before, the number of people that we would interview for roles that were being a spouse or a parent is not an easy job. Being a vet is not an easy job. Caring for a family member, not an easy job. So life teaches us these things and it matures us. And so some of those intangible skills of, are they going to be able to be here on time? I mean, those things become a lot. The employer gets a lot more confidence with someone who is maybe a non-traditional learner because you've had some life experiences, right? You have more at stake in those kind of cases. And I think your second part of the question is, you know, with whatever or education path you're pursuing, how does that help or hinder? I think it depends, right? There is for some very, very technical um, roles, you need to have a foundation level of knowledge. I mean, it's hard to be a mechanical engineer if you've had no engineering classes. I mean, there's just some science and some things that are involved in that in order to do that correctly. But if you have aptitude for pneumatics or hydraulics and you want to be an equipment builder, I think that's a great path to get into. The trades right now have a ton of opportunities because we have team members who are frankly aging out, right? And we're still going to need tooling. We're still going to need, even with additive, we're still going to need big pieces of equipment, opening, closing, or stamping and stuff. And if we don't have that foundation level of tools and capital equipment and jigs and fixtures and spare parts, all that stuff supports everything else that's in the what I call the healthy manufacturing ecosystem, from OEM to complicated assemblies at the tier 1 to tier 2 through tier X. You have to have that stuff. And there's not a lot of people pursuing that for whatever reason. But there's some really, really good careers. And even if that's not where someone wants to be for their entire career from that point forward, getting and seeing how tooling works will then give you the opportunity to say, all right, now maybe I like operations better, right? Well, if you know how tooling works and you're a tooling-centric organization, you're going to be able to solve problems. That's for sure. And again, when you're calling the tooling technician over and saying, come on over here, I think we have this problem, you're going to be able to call foul when they want to quickly leave and go do their own thing, And I'm making kind of a joke. We got a lot of good people. So I think it depends on that second part of your question. Engineering, some finance, some IT requires a certain foundation level. And when you have that, I think certificates are important because it's not the piece of paper that's important. It's the learning that went into getting that piece of paper that's important, that demonstrated that you went through the process, that you completed the process, and that you have a certain level of understanding in this field in order to contribute from day one, right? You're gonna contribute differently, day 600 than day one, but at least from day one, you're not learning on the job 100%. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Looks like we have a question on the Zoom. Dave, excuse me. Dave asks, do you recommend taking a job to get your foot in the door or waiting out for that one dream job opportunity?
Um, well, let me, the second one, the dream job is hard to get at the get-go. I mean, I'm sure people have had it. I didn't, and I don't see very often that the minute you open up this certain thing, even Disney, right? I mean, you could go work at Disney if that's your thing, and you're thinking, I'm going to work at Disney. It's going to be great. Well, I guarantee, depending on the role, it's not always great. It's not always great. It's a business, right? And there are some things that you're going to have to do that you don't want to do. That's why it's work. But I also wouldn't shortchange yourself on just taking a role to get in the door, right? Now, sometimes life throws things at us and we don't have a choice, right? We have to make some income. Right? We just have to get a job. That's just part of life sometimes. We have to have benefits for our kids and all that kind of stuff. But try to find something that you're interested in, at least. If you have an aptitude for computers and technology, even if it's an entry-level position and it's in the field of IT, that's going to be a lot more interesting to you than a field in something else in the medical field, something that you really like. For me, I mean, I don't mind. I can watch gory movies, Game of Thrones, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't bother me at all. But I watch a surgery, that is just not my thing. Watching people cutting stuff open, it's just not me, right? So I couldn't do it. So I use that example where, for me, I would start with something that kind of interests you. something that you want to learn more about. Because back to that comment on patience, every role you have, you're going to take something with you. Every single job you have, you're going to take something. Now more than ever, I think people are exploring different industries and different companies. And I think it's probably to Dave's question, you're trying to find that place where you wake up every morning and you're excited to go into work. And I'll say if you can do that 65% of the time, you're in the right spot. Right? Because again, there's going to be some times where you get into work and it's just, things happen. The unexpected happens, and there's going to be some late nights, right? There's going to be some overseas travel. There's going to be some customers calling at 4:59 on a Friday afternoon when you have plans at 5:30. That stuff is just going to happen. But the more it does happen to you, you realize how to handle it. It becomes less and less. So I think not maybe Dave, I didn't answer your question directly, but I think let me recap here. I would find something you're interested in. If that's what you meant by getting your foot in the door, then yeah, find something you're interested in to start. Just start. And that dream job will come. And what I use for the barometer of the dream job is, if I can get up in the morning, be excited to get up in the morning and go and do my work 65% of the time, I'm doing pretty good.
I have a question that I can ask. I'm noticing a theme in these questions, the process of getting a job. And a question I have for you is you mentioned in your presentation that you've been in hiring positions before where you're looking for talent. Specifically for people who may be earlier on in their career getting their first job after college, are there any like best practices or do's and don't do's that
Mm.
you observed in your time hiring that you can share with us?
Yeah. Well, I think one experienced hiring personnel will try to get to the root of why does this person want this job. And I'll give you an example. We were hiring for kind of a senior role, and the candidates that were coming in, some of them would come in and say, "This is I want to learn about this field. Here's my experience. Here's how I think I can make a difference." Tip number one: come in selling yourself. What do you bring? Right. That's where I said, if you can identify what you can do and what you know, think about how we talked earlier about the value. What value do you think you can bring to the company side? But some of the candidates also, the first things out of their mouth, well, I'm coming back to West Michigan because I'm looking to retire on, out in Holland or something. So we're just kind of your off ramp to your how much energy when things get hard are you going to have our back, right? Are you going to be there on the team when things get hard? Because that's kind of what we look for, right? You don't have to be perfect, but are you there? Did you show up when the team needed you? And are you going to put your energy into this role? Are we going to get that last 5-10% from you to really get things done? So what I wouldn't do in that question is I wouldn't be. Let me say it differently. I want to do it in the positive. What I would do is make sure that you're excited about that role. Back to that because it'll come through, right? It comes through. I think you realize when you ask, what excites you about this role? Common question. Make it real, right? So as you're thinking about why do I want this job, understand that for yourself. And I'm going to answer that question a little bit different as well. That you have the right to interview the company as much as they have to interview. You have that right. And when you go in with that mindset that, is this a place that deserves me? Answer that question for yourself because I think that will come through as well. If you're excited about the products they make, and maybe you do know someone there and they say, hey, it's great and here's why. Answering why for yourself makes a big difference when you're sitting across from the interviewer because that level of confidence that you have and the excitement that you'll show on really understanding your why will make that difference, like I said, between the candidate that has it and the candidate. That answer your question?
We have a question on Zoom. John asks, what if you can't intern for the position you're going to school for or the industry you're looking to go into? Is that a deal breaker for employers?
Um, well, again, without knowing the specifics, here's how I'll answer that. And then what was the person's name?
John.
John. John, the way to answer that is um, employers aren't going to make a job that doesn't exist in their company for the degree that you have, even if you like the company. So, they have to hire these kind of skills, and there has to be some kind of role that fits. And that's what I'd say on the second hand. If you look deep enough, I think whatever education or skill development you're pursuing, there is a way to apply it, but it might not be exactly the way you think. So if you, let's say, this is going to be a bad example, but let's say you're following a legal degree. You really like law, and you want to go after a legal degree. Um, the number of contracts that exist in manufacturing are quite profound. When you get into the quality systems that your customers have, I mean, these things aren't two pieces of paper, they're 200 pieces of paper on what their quality expectations are. And you have to be able to digest it. Some of them, when you get into IP protection, you're doing R&D. Who's going to file for your property rights? So there's derivative roles that, if you think about what does your learning provide to you, it provides you that foundation to do a variety of things. So in that regard, you might find something that's not the exact spot that you thought it was, but the skills that you're learning can be applied in a lot of different ways. And I think thinking outside, don't let yourself be, I guess my point is, don't constrain yourself by what you're interested in learning to the roles that you take on, because I think it'll only augment your learning. And if you're interested in, even if it's not your degree, but you're interested in a certain kind of product, automotive, medical, or whatever, go do an internship there, or shoot, work the floor. I mean, if you really want to know how products are made, that's where it happens. Working on the floor is where it happens. I'm not suggesting that entirely, but don't constrain yourself, I guess, is my point. Find if you have a company that you really want to be a part of, think about how, even if it's not 100%, where you can take those skills and still contribute. I think they exist. I really do.
Looks like we have time for about one more question.
So, I do have a background in manufacturing. I worked on the floor at several different facilities. So when you up there speaking, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Like I'm on the floor following you through little loops and everything. But my question is more so of like when it comes to higher management and it comes to moving up and selling yourself. Like I know it's standard methods you can use to sell yourself, but do you have like any hand-on key like this gets them every time? Because that's more so of the issue that I have. Like I don't have an issue with working, it's the moving up aspect where they
Mhm.
be like, okay, well, your education really doesn't fit the criteria, or yeah, you're working but you haven't been here long enough to. So is there any like key notes that be like, well, hey, most higher ups looking for this specific keynote address or
Mhm.
this specific talent skill to be like, okay, let's take a risk on him. Let's
Yeah.
see what he's really capable of.
Different leaders have different things they're looking for. Some are very parochial and, an MBA and 20 years of experience and all that kind of stuff. And it matters to them, right? I mean, it is, we all have those different things that matters to them. I'll tell you what I look for, especially one, I ask, why does the person want to get into leadership or management? And because you have to really like working with people and guiding people in those roles. Um, and some people don't like it. Some people don't want to deal with people. I remember a story I was talking to my father about this, my first management role. And I said, Dad, I know you've been in business a long time. I find myself, I get in, I have this perfect agenda of all these things I want to do, and then it's 5 o'clock and I've spent the day solving everybody else's problems. And he goes, welcome to management. So you got to like that, right? And And if you don't, there's plenty of roles to move up, being an individual contributor, right? But that does take, I would say, that takes experience. I value experience almost equally as education. I mean, like we said, there for some roles there just has to be that technical foundation, but solving a bunch of problems in that field has a lot of merit in it too, right? Because like I said, to me, the value is, do you have someone who can help solve the problems of the day, right? Versus create problems of the day. So if you can solve problems of the day with your experience, regardless of your education, I think you have a chance to get noticed. But you do have to like people, right? Especially on the management and leadership side. Because I think it's simple, but it's true. I mean, the one thing that leaders need to be effective leaders, followers. You need people who are willing to follow you and back you as their leader. And that, again, you have to earn that. I believe leadership is earned. Those who are granted leadership and anointed leadership, that's a really tough position to put someone in, especially if you're becoming a leader of a group that you were a peer in, right? Right? You got 5 people on this team, maybe the leader left, and they say, hey, let's tap you on the shoulder. It's a weird thing that happens. You may have experienced it. The minute you become their supervisor or their leader, it changes a little bit. Why? Because you can impact their lives, either positively or negatively, right? All of a sudden that changes the dynamic between in your relationship. And you kind of have to have the desire to want to go through that. And I think if you do, and you can effectively lead people and help solve their problems of the day, which solve the problems of the business, to me that's what good leaders will notice, and good companies will respect that experience and that ability. And regardless of your credentials, your dossier, or whatever, they're going to find those people that people are willing to follow, who can solve the problems of their team, who can protect the interests of the organization. If you can do those things, I think you will get noticed. Right? But part of it, I think, has to start with, why do we want to be in leadership or management? Into serving people in that way, is that what gives you energy? Right? Because if not, it's going to bring you down. It's going to be really kind of hard to do that stuff. If not, again, totally okay. We need people who are very strong subject matter experts to help solve those problems too. Totally okay. But just know that about yourself, is the advice I'd give. It's not just about the salary anymore, because it when you're just down and you're waking up, the opposite of what we talked about earlier. Every day you're getting up and like, oh, crap, I gotta go to work again. That's not living. It's just not living. And I didn't always have this perspective, by the way, for all of you. I mean, it takes some years behind you to really understand some of the joys of life and being able to lead people. And it's taken a lot of ups and downs and just a lot of situations that were great and not so great. So you still got to live through it. I'm not saying you're going to find this panacea that's just perfect in all cases. But, now more than ever, don't pursue the dollars in the paycheck. Pursue the contribution that you want to make to that organization. And again, back to, you have a right to, is that organization honoring the contribution you're making? If not, it's time to think again about, do I want to be here? Right? Because I think you're going to limit yourself if you don't have that energy. That last 5 to 10%, that fortitude, that resilience comes from wanting to care for your teammates and help the organization succeed. And that takes some fire in the belly to be able to do that. That answer your question?
Amazing. Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
Let's get a round of applause. So before I let you all go, I wanted to give you a couple FutureTech updates. Looks like my clicker is not working. Let me see if I can get it going on the mouse. As I mentioned at the start of this event, we have career conversations every week. So moving forward for the rest of the month of March, we're actually going to have 2 a week. And you might recognize the speaker for our next week's event. It's a little known guy named Linus Cackley. That's also me. Next week, Monday, from 12:30 to 1:30, I'll be hosting a workshop on transferable skills. So you might have heard these called soft skills, interpersonal skills, power skills, transferable skills, you name it. They're basically the skills that are required in every job. So think things like communication, leadership, collaboration. I'll be leading a workshop on how to identify those skills that you've built in previous work experiences you've had and how to apply those to future jobs. So we're doing a little experiment of trying some more time frames for these events. So this is a lunchtime one. So feel free to join us. That'll be in this same room or on Zoom. Aside from events, we also have some internships currently open. There's a network engineering role at Beacon, IT help desk intern at Makatawa Technologies, and pretty soon we'll be opening up a general IT support internship with Code on Wheels. These are the current internships that we have created with local companies, but another opportunity for interning is finding a company you're interested in working at and letting us know, hey, Linus, I heard of this company. I'd love to work for them. Can you help make it happen? What FutureTech does is fund internships for GRCC students. So it's a very appealing offer to companies to get talent without having to pay for it. So if you ever have a company in mind you're looking to intern for, please let us know and we'd be happy to try and set something up for you. Another opportunity we have coming up is on Monday, April 2. We'll be doing an IT focused tour of Davenport University. So, if you're hoping to transfer after your time at GRCC or are just interested in learning about the other IT educational opportunities that are available to you, this tour will be happening on April 2 at 1 p.m. There's only a few spots remaining, so if you're interested, I encourage you to scan this RSVP form. You can also find this in Canvas under our announcements section. And then lastly, if this is your first career conversation or your first time hearing about Future Tech, we'd love for you to scan the interest form on the top right. That gives us a way to follow up with you, keep you updated about our upcoming events and other opportunities that are available. And if this is not your first Future Tech event, you know the drill. We'd love it if you could fill out the event attendance form. That gives you a space to let us know what you want to see from us in the future, and it gives us a way of double checking that you are here and counting your progress towards the 2-hour monthly engagement goal. And an exciting update is after the event attendance form, you'll have an opportunity to claim a digital badge for being here at a Future Tech event. So, digital badges are a way of signaling to employers the skills that you're building through Future Tech, whether those be professionalism, communication, or career and self development. So, scan this QR code to check those out. With that being said, thank you all to everyone who came and joined us in person today. If you're on Zoom, thank you so much for spending your evening with us. Shout out to our media technologies team for helping this event to run smoothly. And last but not least, Peter, thank you so much for your insight and advice to our students.
Yeah.
With that being said, that brings this event to a close. If you have any questions for me, I'll stick around for a bit. But if not, hope you have a great day and see you next week, maybe.